Britain's been talking about it, Lorraine's been talking about it, I know the Loose Women have been talking about it all week. Adolescence, an extraordinary TV drama that's on Netflix. Questions that actually, Adolescence, Nick, it should be shown in Parliament, it should be shown in schools, it should be shared more widely to try and understand what it is that young men need, teenage boys need, as male role models.
I didn't really understand binge viewing, to be honest, until this weekend when we started on Adolescence and we didn't go to bed until we said... It's not for the faint-hearted. Let's get a viewer warning. It discusses very, very serious elements, one of which is this supposed male toxicity, which is of great concern. And politicians, of course, responding as they often do. The solution... a possible minister for men. Now, I'm not sure about that. We do have a problem with toxic. There's no question about it. I'd like to see more... We hear about toxic influence. What's a positive influence? I personally benefited from having... And we've just done this on the radio, and obviously I had a great dad. He was fantastic. But I'm hearing from a lot of my listeners that they either... If they didn't have a great dad, perhaps they had a great rugby teacher or a boxing teacher, something like that, a sport. So it's discipline, isn't it? But I will say this before I hand over. We are in a society now where we send people into schools to teach children how to brush their teeth or to how to be toilet trained. There has to be some parental responsibility as well. Now, adolescence is a different case, and I'm not going to spoil it. No. Please don't think I'm addressing it in that case. But if you do too much for people, they won't take on these basics of looking after their children. So I don't think a minister for men. I think parental responsibility and, of course, tougher safeguards.
Camilla?
I mean, I think what it opens up is a debate about the pernicious nature of teenage boys and girls having a smartphone with access to so much material that they shouldn't really be looking at. If you look at the Dr. Jonathan Haidt argument, he's the author of Anxious Generation, he makes this point about how we are underprotecting children in everyday life. We don't let them go out to play as much. We're worried about kind of predators in the street. And overprotecting them in life and underprotecting them online. And a lot of the themes that Adolescence speaks to is this idea of how influencers can get into the teenage mind, the pernicious nature of online pornography, the different ways in which women particularly are depicted online, the over-sexualisation of teenage girls and women. So there's so much to unpick there. And I think as well, ministers for men, I mean, the counter-argument, we have got a minister for women and equalities. I don't think it's about that. I think there's plenty of research. In fact, only in the last 2 weeks, a think tank called the Centre for Social Justice released a report called Lost Boys. And it spoke to this idea that boys are behind girls in school, in higher education, and now even in the earning capacity of 18 to 24-year-olds. There's a sense to which they've lost their way. We had a counter-extremism expert talking about how teenage boys watching Andrew Tate videos should be as much as a red flag as teenage boys watching videos by Islamic or other extremists. There's so much to unpick here, but all roads do seem to lead to the smartphone.
Yes.
And the advent of technology, which we haven't, as parents, as the grown-ups, I just don't think we've had a grip on what the children are accessing.
So, former England football manager Gareth Southgate did the Dimbleby lecture yesterday talking about exactly that. Let's just have a little listen to what Gareth said.
As real-world communities and mentorship declines, young men end up withdrawing, reluctant to talk or express their emotions. And this void is filled by a new kind of role model who do not have the best interests at heart. These are callous, manipulative and toxic influencers whose sole drive is for their own gain. They willingly trick young men into believing that success is measured by money or dominance, never showing emotion, and that the world, including women, is against them.
Do you know what is really... it's amazing hearing Gareth Southgate talk. He was always such a brilliant advocate when he was England manager. Regardless of what you think about his technical know-how or whatever, he was always such a brilliant leader for those players. When you see drama like this, Nick, create a conversation that stays with you. It was a drama that was put on, you know, that's been written by Jack Thorne and Stephen Graham. And it has these reverberations that you feel like there could be policy change, there could be change from it. Just realise how powerful things like this are.
The government would probably point to Ofcom. Now, Ofcom, which regulates what we are doing now, regulates us on the radio, wherever we are, they now have new powers. And they would say that ultimately, if a programme, if a provider puts a material out like that, ultimately they could fine them £18 million or 10% of their global net profit, or the chief executive would go to jail. Well, watch this space. I don't think it'll happen anytime soon. But what that show says, and we mentioned enough, so we won't plug it again, what that show says to me is that there has to be more parental involvement. I mean, this really, respectfully, your boys are 4 or 5 years off that.
Yes.
How are you going to police it?
It's absolutely terrifying to me.
And my day is done. My boys are reared.
And when you talked about teachers and rugby teachers and boxing teachers, we were talking earlier in the week and saying that male teachers are in vast decline. They can't even
Secondary
find
school. Yeah.
the teachers to do it, which I thought was one of the most disturbing, actually,
aspect.
scenes in adolescence was the school and the chaos that was there.
Why it paints a frightening picture is because Stephen Graham and Jack Thorne wanted to make the point that they didn't want to say that this was a child from a dysfunctional family and have the typical kind of dramatic arc of, there's dysfunctionality, the parents are neglectful, the father's not there. You know, there's this kind of there for the grace of God go I aspect to it. Just reflecting on Gareth Southgate there, you know, of course sporting figures can be role models, but then he's also talking about that element that creeps in celebrity in general, which is a degree of materialisation, too much money, too much bling. There's a huge amount of narcissism that I think is being passed on to teenagers, caring too much about their looks, about their material goods, and what's, you know, rather than their character, what they can achieve in life, the denigration of family in general. I mean, we could do a whole show on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of themes that this has become a water cooler conversation because it's just connected with people.
And brilliant that it has.
Yes.
And I think too many of that generation, they think they can become an influencer and it's all going to happen. Right, we're all doing well, but we've all been getting up at dawn. We've put in shifts. We've done shows that didn't get anywhere. I've done newspapers. stood in the pouring rain, trying to talk to someone. You've stood in the pouring. That's what these young people have to realise. You have to put in a shift before you get someplace.
Hello. Thank you for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload tons of new content every single day. So hit the subscribe button, like all the videos, and don't miss out. We'll see you in the morning.